Welcome, guys, to Stop Losing Women. I just ran downstairs. I had to get some water. I was like, oh, crap, I'm forgetting my water. Anyway, this is the show where you learn about women, dating, relationships, and everything else in between. I'm your host, as always, Harry Wilmington, usually less winded than this, but we'll get to that. So anyway, guys, thanks for joining me today. We have a jam-packed show today, and the main topic we're talking about today is, do women ever give good relationship dating advice to men? And this is something that's talked about often in the sphere that I'm in, whereby there is a wholehearted belief. On one end, you have men that say, you cannot learn how to attract women from women because they're not the ones that are trying to go after them. And so listening to any of their advice is bullcrap. And then you have women saying, that's not fair. As women, we know what we want. So men, you should listen to us and avoid listening to all these guys out there that are giving you toxic advice and don't know what they're talking about. And I have come to learn that the reality of whether or not you should listen to what women are saying with regards to dating and relationships, there is somewhere in the middle there that is the truth, right? Because I can tell you from personal experience, dating back in the day, me listening to women's advice about what they want in relationships, trying to do a lot of that stuff ended up not attracting any women at all when I was trying to date. And so at some point, I started to realize a key thing that I think if men were able to understand that, they would see when it would potentially be okay to listen to women's advice and when it can be its most detrimental to your dating life. And we're going to get into all of that stuff. Obviously, we have other things we want to talk about on the show as well. And of course, at the end of the day, this show is ultimately about you guys. So if you're listening on the podcast, you can watch this show live on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays at either 11 or 12 o'clock at youtube.com/StopLosingWomen. But I'll be happy to answer any questions you have. You can leave them in the chat, and I'll be happy to get to those comments and questions at some point during the show. For those guys that want a little bit more in-depth knowledge or want some personal one-on-one time with me as a coach, you can go to StopLosingWomen.com. Check out the one-on-one coaching I have available. We also have some great programs there, as well as some ebooks and audiobooks that can be beneficial to your journey as a potential dater and long-term relationship person. All right. If you're watching the video now, be sure to give me a like, get the likes up, subscribe, all that great stuff. All right. So before we get into the main topic, I do have a couple of questions, or I have a question rather in the comments section. And I also have something else I want to talk about that we'll get to before we get to the main topic today. So to start off with, we have a comment. So obviously the title of the show is, do women ever give men good dating advice? And somebody left a comment saying, I think it's important to get the right person to give the right advice. And shout out to Apollonia Ponte for her good advice. I love her stuff. Like, I follow her. She's been in this space for a long time. She's also been married for a long time. So, you know, I thoroughly enjoy her advice. And by the way, it's, as we'll get to later on in the show, I will never say that women can't give good relationship or any kind of advice to men ever. Like, I think that's levels of fallacy. I do know that early in my dating journey, I was listening to women and I was failing a lot. But I think that also speaks to the perspective at which the woman's coming and what areas of dating and relationships she's talking about that can be beneficial. You know, I used to also watch, I think Courtney, oh God, I can't remember her name now, Courtney something. She also gave relationship advice, and she just recently quit because she's married and she's about to have a kid now. She's about to have a son, you know? So it's not that I don't think women can't give good advice, but we'll get more into that in the course of the show. Anyway, we have a question in the chat, and the question goes, you've mentioned things we as men are unable to change. I feel like we are only responsible for changing ourselves. That being said, what should we as men change apart from our looks? Well, that's a good question. Obviously, looks are a big part of that. How you smell definitely is the big thing, because women, I've had so many women friends of mine talk about either how good a man smelled and how when she smelled him walk by, she was instantly attracted, and also how they liked the guy, and then they went on a date and he smelled bad, and now she doesn't like him anymore. So that's obviously a thing too. But the biggest thing that I think men can change apart from their looks, honestly, is their temperament. Like, it's weird to say, because, you know, we have this, you know, women will complain about how like guys need to be more emotional and all this stuff, but really the more stoic you are and the more indifferent you become to a lot of different outcomes, you will find that your level of tolerance goes up, and therefore things that used to bug you about women won't bug you as much. For example, women talk in passive language. That's just universally a truth that both men and women will acknowledge, that, women amongst themselves, they don't have to say a thing to know that a thing's being said amongst each other, And so I think men get annoyed by that because we are like very direct with each other with regards to our request of things. We're not always so direct with our emotions, but in terms of like, I want this, I want that. Hey, guy over there, do this thing, don't do this thing. Like, we're really good at that. And so we get annoyed when women come to us and are trying to hint things at us and use passive language to try to get their way. And we're just like, why can't you just tell us? And my honest thing I got to realize is that if you want a feminine woman, that means dealing with the way that feminine women act. And women that are in their feminine, as an example, are more often than not going to have levels of passive language. Like my wife, love her to death. We are typically pretty like, we're not, and direct doesn't mean mean. Direct just means like, hey, we can request what we want and stuff, right? But there are still times where like, she'll literally say something that's passive and I'll be like, so you really meant this thing over here, right? Like, perfect example, I love watching like The Daily Show. I love watching Colbert and all the guys that do news about politics. And she's very much like, listening to politics stuff just gets her in turmoil. So like anytime I'm like downstairs and say I turn on like Colbert, I turn on The Daily Show, she could be sitting there, we could be talking this and that. As soon as I turn it on, she'll just magically just kind of get up and just magically just kind of make her way to the kitchen or magically make her way upstairs. She's never going to say, I already know she doesn't like it, but she's not going to stop me from watching it. She just doesn't feel the need to be in the room for that. But she never says anything. She just gets up and just walks off. So that's passive language. I understand what that is. So I don't have to she didn't have that conversation with me of like, hey, so I'm gonna go do something else now because I don't like this show, And I think that kind of thing annoys men because it's not our normal language. And this is why I tell both sexes, treat the way the other person communicates like it's a foreign language. Like if I were going to Mexico, I could be frustrated all I want to that everybody here is speaking Spanish and I don't. How dare they? This is frustrating me. Or I could learn a few Spanish phrases and then not be nearly as frustrated, And so I think, both sexes do a really bad job of thinking the other sex needs to talk the way I talk or communicate the way I do or say things the way I do. And that's just not going to happen. And so the less frustrated you are about that, and the more you're willing to actually dive into how do women actually communicate, you will find your dates will go easier. You'll find that on a date, let's say like, you were trying to like hug a girl, touch a girl, and she kind of went like this, you'll know that means like, oh, it doesn't mean try harder. It means wait a little bit and let her become more comfortable, versus what a lot of guys do is they have this whole thing in their head about, well, I got to do this thing called keynoting on dates where I touch her so she knows that I want to do stuff with her later. And then the guy's touching up on her and she's kind of going like, ha, 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 and he's thinking, well, she's laughing and smiling, so she must want me to keep doing that, when really she's like, dude, get the freak away from me. If you knew that that's what that meant, you would do less of it. If you knew that like, saying certain things or doing certain things that you think are funny aren't going to be translated that way to her on those first couple of dates, you would know not to say them or do them, and then she'd have a better time. So that's really a key thing, is just really changing your mindset about, hating the fact that women communicate a certain way and you're going to try to change them. You're not going to change how women are. Like, I will say this, as you get more into a relationship with the woman and she starts to trust you more, she will be more willing to change up the way that she communicates. But there has to be like a balance to that, which is you got to let some stuff go. Like, you got to know that she'll say something passively and you can't just be mad all the time and be like, you need to say that directly. It's got to be a give and take. She's going to learn ways to be more direct, and you need to be better at like being able to be passive and be playful more so than you are right now. So hopefully that's an answer you can take. I wonder if that woman who was fanning herself in my presence was being passive in her flirting. Is that possible? Yes. Women are passive in their flirting also. Think about the fact that the biggest joke, it'll be like, women will say, well, I was trying to signal that guy that I liked him. And a guy will be like, okay, what'd you do? Well, I looked at him for 2 seconds longer than is comfortable in hopes that he'd get that. Like, this is the thing where if you learn how women are with regards to how they say certain things and the actions that they do, you'll start to realize when girls are liking you. My biggest thing in college was that I thought that women just didn't like me. And then I realized later on, I was just not reading signals that were indicators of interest. I had to learn, Doc Love, rest in peace, taught me a lot about what's called indicators of interest. A big one is that women will put themselves in your sphere unprovoked when they're trying to pique your interest. So I look back at the times of like, I would be at like parties, or I'd be at like clubs or at house parties and stuff, where I'd be like, sitting there dancing, having a good time. And I was a great dancer. I used to have like crowds all around me when I was dancing back in the day at these parties. And it still happens now. Like at my wedding, me and my wife did a whole routine with like Michael Jackson and Kendrick Lamar and stuff. People were like, oh my God, he still got it. Anyway. So I'll be at these parties and be just standing there. And I would notice like women walk over and they would just kind of like walk over to me and like they'd stand like right here. And I'd be facing this way, they'd be standing right here. And they would stand there for like 10, 20 seconds. And then they would just kind of walk away. And then like maybe another girl would come by and just kind of like walk by me and accidentally bump me like, oh, my bad. And then to walk, even though there was like clear space between me. Like, because again, and I say, this is why I say the mantra of like, if she's chasing you, she can't be replacing you. Like women have no problem making a first move. It's just they can't make a first move that's going to be so obvious that the public can look at her and be like, oh, she's really thirsty for that guy. So what she'll do is she'll do things like walk by you and fan you, and she might do it a couple of times. And it's almost like we're saying, hey, I'm over here. I'm literally over here. Come over here and like hit on me, talk to me, do something. And again, because guys are so stuck in like, guys will do this thing where they'll see these signals and they'll say, well, I mean, but if she really wanted me, she would come over and say something, and she would say hi to me, and she would ask me for a 9 number. And that's not how this works. And that's where a lot of guys end up failing, is that they're not recognizing that women are doing these things to hint to them that they want them, and then they're losing out. So yes, when women, and here's the thing, because we're also afraid of like, let's say they show us a signal, and then we think, well, if I misread that signal and I try to hit on her, then I'm going to be devastated. And the problem is guys go from 0 to 100 real quick. So we think, okay, she's showing that she likes me. So now I want to go up to her and tell her, hey, I like you too. And I want to go out with you and all this other stuff. And they know they can get a rejection by doing that, because they can, because that's too forward, right? So all a woman signaling when she's walking by you and doing these things, those are just indicators that there's a level of interest there. And if you were to approach her and just kind of start up a conversation, she'd be open to it. She doesn't know where that conversation is going to go, but she's still open to the idea of like, let's have a conversation and see if I feel about him the way that I think I would have felt when I walked by him the first time, So when you see those kind of hints, you got to just know there's no harm or foul in at least going up to a girl and saying, hey, what's up? Or, hey, I always use the atmosphere as a way to hit on girls. Like, oh man, this party's so great. Or, oh, what do you think of the music here? Oh, hey, I saw you had a drink in your hand. Like, where'd you get that drink from? It looks really delicious. Just the most boring stuff you can say if a woman's already showing you an indicator of interest early on. Just wanted to put that out there. So before we get into the main chat, I follow a lot of people on YouTube. Like, I've been in this space for a long time, and there are a lot of great people out there. And there are guys out there that have been successful in relationships and have been married and talk about the joys of, being married and finding love and all this other stuff. And there are also guys out there that have been put through the ringer. They've been divorced. They have bitter exes that are trying to, fight them in court for stuff. And it just is awful and ugly. And it's interesting because as a guy that's married, you would think that maybe I would be privy to watching mostly content that speaks to like the positives of relationships and the joys of marriage and blah, blah, blah. But really, honestly, a fair portion of what I watch actually is from like people that were like put through it and are actually like anti-marriage and are fully like living the Playboy lifestyle and those other stuff. And I think as a person, if you're serious about trying to figure out your dating life and your relationships and how to connect with women, it also behooves you to have a realistic viewpoint of women in a real way, because the thing that if you're a guy that's not that experienced in dating, you're going to have a very idealistic way of looking at women. You're going to think that they're perfect, or that they would never intentionally do things that would like cause you to feel hurt and pain and agony. And this is the worst mindset you as a dater can have, because what'll happen is that you'll go out there and you'll meet somebody, and let's say she's like, she's 35 years old, former drug addict, has 2 kids, still in the party scene, etc. Right? And you're going to make excuses for that woman as to why she's still a good pick, not realizing that you picking the wrong woman now can cost you so much in the long run that it's not going to even be worth it. Yeah, you're thinking, well, right now I'm horny, I want sex, and she looks good, and she seems to like me too, and I can make this work out and whatever. And there are real consequences to not letting those women go and being able to, and trying to date them, only to find out later that you're going to pay a hefty price. And so one of the guys that's in this space that I watch a whole lot is Coach Greg Adams. He has a channel called The Free Agent Lifestyle, and he was a guy that was formerly married. He did everything the right way. He had two kids with this woman, was with her for 10 years, and they got divorced. And needless to say, he has been put through it. And so now he lives what's called the free agent lifestyle, where he'll go jet ski, travel to other places. He'll go to different countries and hook up with tons of women. I think he said he's a sugar daddy. And there are people out there who are still pro-love and still pro-getting married, this and that will criticize that lifestyle. As a person, I just don't do that. Like, I'm like, hey, he went through the ringer. If he decides after all that he doesn't want to like be with somebody in a marriage capacity or a long-term situation, that's totally fine. But I think what I really like about his channel is he really gives the full-hearted truth about the consequences that he has faced as a result of choosing the wrong woman. Because again, whether, I don't know how he got with her, maybe he was lustful for her, or that maybe he ignored red flags early on, which I think he's talked about, like ignoring some of the red flags. So he puts himself out there as a great lesson on when you ignore red flags, this is the stuff that happens. And so now he just lives the lifestyle he wants to. Well, there's another person out there named Dr. I'll see it on here, but he was complaining about Coach Greg Adams because he had put up a video about him being on vacation. Like last year, he put up like a montage video of like the various vacations he went on where he can hooked up with like all these women. And I think his name was Dr. Bryce. And Dr. Bryce was trying to say how like that's not a fulfilling lifestyle and all this other stuff. And so he really had to kind of put his nose to the grindstone and say to Dr. Bryce, like, hey, respectfully, I've been there and I've already faced consequences for that. And so that's why I don't want to get married. So I want to play a clip that I recently saw on a show that I think really demonstrates that good.
Science shows this eventually leads to burnout and feeling of emptiness in your life. Now, boys, if you're watching, and for people who are watching and don't know, I was previously married. So what you're saying at the end of what I should do is have purpose. What you're saying is I should be settled down and married. Well, boys, I was settled down and married and divorced. I almost had a 10-year marriage. It was almost 10 years. Like, it was almost literally 9 years. But by the time we got fully divorced and signed off, it was at the 10 and a half year, 11 year mark. So the marriage was still technically on, but the clock had started. Stop. The clock had started right at year 9. I produced 2 children. Both of them are legal adults.
All right. So as you can see, he was married. He was faithful to this chick and he was actually a former girls basketball coach too. But yeah, so married for 9 or 10 years, had 2 kids, and then it ended. He's going to go into what happened as a result of that.
I don't care if they participate in this lifestyle. It doesn't bother me. All right. They're adults. They can make their own decision. So since I've already done that, the whole point is, why would I do it again when I can do this? I've already done that, sir. And by the way, I was burnt out of marriage, and nothing made me feel emptiness in my life than going through a divorce.
Nothing made him feel emptier in life than going through a divorce. And see, these are the things that you, as a person that's currently single, that's not in a serious relationship yet, is probably not going to think about. No, because people don't want to think about like the negatives. They don't want to think that something bad could potentially happen with this choice that I've chosen. And so they end up just kind of dating haphazardly, like whoever I date, if they love me back, then it's just going to work out and they'll never have bad feelings about me whatsoever. And they're not looking at the fact that this could be the reality if you don't pick wisely.
That's the point I was going to make. The most empty and lonely I ever felt, and the most hopeless I ever felt, was going through a divorce and constantly getting taken back to court for 10 years and 12 years after the divorce, going to child support and ex parte hearings and hiring lawyers. So for people who want to know about tricking, I literally went homeless and I paid excess and lost hundreds of thousands of dollars based on my marriage.
So because he chose the wrong person to procreate with and to marry, he got homeless at one point. He lost friends. He had to go back and forth to court like tons of times. And I had a friend of mine that went through this also, like went through divorce with a woman that he thought was going to be kind and affectionate and caring. And although he said in hindsight, he grew up in the church. And so he felt that God was telling him to get with this person. And as a result of that, he ignored red flags. And in hindsight, he said he actually saw red flags that were indicating that this could possibly not work out, but he just felt so strongly that like God was telling him to be with this person that he allowed to happen. And they were married for all like 3 years, and then they got divorced. And then, yeah, like she was bitter about some stuff. And so she wasn't allowing him to see his kid as often as he wanted to. He had to eventually take her to court to be able to get the right amount of child support and also to get the visitation rights that he wanted. Like, that's all stuff that you currently aren't thinking about. And it needs to be at the forefront of your mind when you're just going on date number one and thinking, yep, this is the right chick. Like, you don't know her enough to make that decision yet.
Lost good, close relationships and friendships when they left me on my own and left me lonely during my divorce. So I spent hundreds of thousands of dollars to get custody of my kids. I literally just recently spent $50,000 to get custody of my son when he was 17 because my ex-wife did not want him to live with me because I moved to Las Vegas. Then I won the case and only lived with him a year, but I sent him to the University of Oregon. He's now a freshman there. I got him there when he was going to go to community college with his mom. She had no plans for him. I had to spend $50,000 because he wanted to move 2 years prior, and I literally had to fight the court system, spend $50,000, give her $22,000. And y'all talking about tricking? You talking about these women getting a couple $500? Okay, these women getting chicken wings and drinks.
So you already said, right? Like he said, okay, at the point that his son was 17, the son wanted to go live with him. And it should just be a thing where the mom's like, hey, you want to live with your dad? Go ahead and have a good time. This is that, right? But she was just so bitter and so upset and trying to hold a grudge that no, he had to go to court and pay an additional $50,000 plus $22,000 to her to be able to get his own son back, right? Now, as a person that just got married, you might be thinking like, but Harry, wait, like, so you watch this kind of content and you still decided to get married, like, what's the deal? So here's the reality, guys, right? Because, you know, there are content creators that are coming here and try to lie to you and say like, well, if you just choose the right woman and you just do whatever and make sure you really vet her properly, that you'll almost guarantee that you'll never get a divorce. Here's the honest reality is that, you know, me and my wife knew each other for a long time. Before we went to school together back in the day, we reconnected. Things have been absolutely great. She doesn't have, as far as I'm concerned, she doesn't have like an angry bone in her body. She's happy every single freaking day, hopefully partially because of me, but also just because she just has been like a happy-go-lucky person most of her life, right? So, but even seeing that, I knew going into a marriage that there's always a possibility that could change. Like she could, you know, get into an accident one day that changes her brain chemistry, and now she wants to be a mad person all the time. Or like she could decide, you know, she could get on some kind of drug situation due to like some kind of sickness, and now she doesn't want sex anymore. Now her libido's gone, and all this other stuff, right? Like that could happen. Or she could just decide one day, hey, you know what? I realized I have a crush on somebody at work, and I like them better, so I'm going to leave you. Like that's always a possibility. So here's the thing. Getting married doesn't mean that you are completely devoid of the chance or possibility of getting a divorce. It means that you're making a commitment that you're going to do this to the best of your ability, and that and ideally you've gone out with the person enough to get a decent read on the likelihood of them wanting to get a divorce versus stay with you. That's all you can do, right? But here's what I don't like men to do, right? Is that you do a worse job at hedging your bets when you pick a woman that's already showing you signs that she's the wrong one. And that's the big thing is that, you know, like I said, my wife up to this point has shown no negative indicators that she would be a person that I'm going to have turmoil with or dump me. And it could still happen, right? But at least dating her, I had a feeling of peace throughout the entire time of us dating. There were other women that I dated at times where things would be great for the most part, but there would be these things that would pop up that my soul would just be like, this could be bad long term. Don't do that. And there are so many guys that will date women who will start showing these red flags, these negative things about them, talking about their past. In the dating phase of the relationship, they're already talking about withholding sex or not wanting to follow any man's program, or she doesn't cook and think that it's beneath her to do that, and all this other stuff. And guys will see that and be like, but I still think she's a good prospect for marriage. And that's what, you know, guys like Coach Greg Adams, guys like my friend, they'll see these red signs of these red flags and think to themselves, but she's a woman. And so she just needs to feel more love for me. And as I show her more love, then she'll be willing to get with my program. And that is not reality, guys. So you can't ever fully divorce proof your life or your marriage. All you can do is you read some stuff, you show up authentically as you can, you take it day by day, and you just make the commitment to do the best you can. And you have to know going into a marriage that even with doing all that stuff and doing all the right things, there's still a chance you can get divorced. But I'm talking about, but you lessen your chance of that happening if you listen to those instincts you're having when things are kind of a little off, or when you see red flags, and getting rid of those women versus, but I feel sorry for her, but who else is going to date her? You know what? I can be her knight in shining armor. I can make her get off those drugs. I can help her get a better attitude so she won't yell at people all the time. Like, the reality is that's not going to happen. And the sooner you're able to realize that, then you can move on to women who will give you a better chance. I'm never going to ever say there's not ever a chance ever of the woman that is the woman of your dreams, that has, a great attitude and emotional stability, that means that she will never divorce you. I will never say that. But I will say you hedge your bets a lot better if, when you're seeing red flags from women, you get rid of them. All right. So just wanted to put that out there because, like I said, I think, and for those of you guys that are still in this journey of trying to find somebody, again, watching from creators like Greg Adams, I like Better Bachelor stuff also. James Sexton's another one. He's a divorce lawyer who talks about his own divorce as well as divorces he's done for other people and what that looks like, because in this stage, all you're thinking about is, I want to treat her well and I want to be all lovey-dovey and find somebody, this and that. But this is why, as a guy, it's better to be a bit more logical in your dating, because you'll start analyzing versus being so dopey in love that you bypass when she's showing you certain signs that indicate that she's actually not a good prospect long-term. So consider, keep watching my stuff, obviously, but consider watching those other content creators. Watch videos of guys who have been put through the ringer, and you can hear them say, well, when we were dating, I realized that in hindsight, she was doing this, and this, and this, but I just thought it was no big deal. Trust me, anything that pops up that you think now is not going to be a big deal, it's going to be magnified extremely gratefully a lot more once you get married to her. So just be careful about that. Anyway, we got a question in the chat. Let's see. We got a couple questions in the chat. Let's see. Make me feel like a simple conversation. Okay, that was the flirting question. This guy says, I'm very wary about flirting. I feel like flirting doesn't make me feel as comfortable as simple conversation. Is that wrong, right, or indifferent? So, you know what? Interesting. This goes back to the conversation about women's signals and stuff, right? Like, I did great on online dating, and I did great in-person dating. And a lot of that was boiling down to, again, if you really pay attention to women, most women will throw the first punch. They will throw the first hint out there that indicates that they're ready for something beyond just the normal conversation. A thing I used to do on dates that worked all the time without fail is I would be talking to a woman across the table from me, right? And we'd be talking. And at some point I'm like, okay, I need to start seeing if she's trying to feel me out in a real way, right? So while I'm talking to this person, midway through my talk, I would just put my hands on the table like this and just keep talking. Like, the food's not there yet, so it's not rude to do this. Sitting there talking, right? And I would just leave my hands there. Now, why am I doing that? Because I know she wants to make the first move. I know she wants to be able to signal to me that she is ready she's comfortable enough with me to be ready to have some interaction of touch and tactile things, right? But if I don't put anything out there that gives her leeway to do that, then it's not going to happen. So I would put my hands in, and without fail, first date, any woman that was starting to feel me, she would be telling a story like, blah, 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 this thing happened in my day. Oh, and then this happened. And she would reach out and touch my hand. And so at that point, that lets me know, oh, she's now ready for me to flirt with her because she's touching me, which is, you understand, for women, it is a big deal. I've had so many women friends tell me about how grossed out they were that a guy was trying to touch them on a date, except for the ones that were a little bit patient. And then next thing you know, it's like, they'll be like, yeah, then, I kissed him first. Or, oh, I had a friend that told me she met a guy at a party and she went up to him, started talking. And then at some point he was like, I got to go. She followed him to the elevator. And then before the doors closed, she kissed him. She did all the work, right? But he kept himself open on the couch enough to be found for my friend to go to him. And now they've been married for years and have 3 kids and a dog. So I said to say, again, this speaks to, you're in your head about how do I flirt with her? What do I got to do to this and that? Really look for the indicator of interest from her that she's ready to flirt. And at that point, you can match her energy. If she's touching you in the hand, you now know it's okay to touch her hand, to probably hold her hand, to maybe put your hand at the small of her back. If you guys are talking, listen for when she makes the first sexual innuendo. I have found women more often than not will be willing to make the first sexual innuendo. And then at that point, you have to worry about if I say this thing is inappropriate or not. So I would go on dates and I'd have regular conversations, but I'd leave myself open for touch. And as soon as she touched, I knew she was ready to get flirty and I could be a little more touchy. But again, even then, I'm matching her energy of touch. If she's touching my hand, I'm not going for a butter breast. Like that's not happening, right? But I might go for her hand, I go for her back a little bit. And then if she's walking close to me, I notice she'll like rub up against me a little bit so I can rub up against her. Like it's just kind of going back and forth, but you go with her lead on the physical stuff of things, right? And then if you decide to escalate a little bit, you can. If not, when you escalate, you'll find that like she'll let you know what the boundaries are if she's cool with you doing a certain touch now versus later. But that's really how I would do with my flirting. And then also, I've always just been really a kind of funny, sarcastic guy, and I've never been mean sarcastic. That's the important thing. Like men think, women don't want us to be sarcastic at all. So we try to stay on topic with these serious conversations. Learn to be like observationally sarcastic. I do puns, I do silly puns and stuff all day, and women seem to have loved it. It's like, because I'm not putting it personally towards them. I'm making, funny word phrase jokes and stuff like that. Like, and it's really, women like seeing that because that indicates to them that you have a smart mind because you're able to take one thing and compare it to another, which means you have some level of intelligence about you. Like, that's really what my style of flirting was. Now, other guys out there, hey, to be fair, they have, 10 out of 10 looks, and the way that they flirt, they can just do stuff that maybe you might not be able to get away with depending on how you look or whatever like that. But there are levels of ways that you can do flirting that will be accepted by most women. So hopefully that answered your question. We have a question in the chat. And the question goes, Coach, what is your take on being very social, which can gain attraction, but yet many say being the quiet one always wins? Well, I honestly think, and keep in mind, clearly I'm an introvert. This show was formerly called, it actually was called Stop Losing Women First. And then I changed it over to Introvert Dating Success. And then I changed it to Harry Dating Combos. And I just like the way Stop Losing Women sounds the best. But even as an introvert, I would have my extroverted times where I could go to parties. And especially like I was great at house parties because I knew almost everybody there. And so what would happen is this: I would go to a house party and inevitably there would be a girl there that I didn't know. In fact, what's funny? I'm thinking about it now. That's actually how I met my now wife. Like back in college, I was in the theater program. I stayed an extra year because I flunked out my first senior year, which you guys all know about because of a girl that I had a crush on and I couldn't make it work. And I got depressed about it and I stopped going to classes and stuff, right? So I had to go back for another senior year to finish up like 2 classes. Best senior year of my life because I had limited work to do and I could just kind of hang out, whatever, right? But because of that, I wasn't having to go to theater classes much because I only had like 1 class in the theater and that was it. So I was still friends with the people that were there and they had been doing a play. And so after all of our plays, inevitably somebody would have like a rap house party, like, hey, we finished the play, let's go have a party at so-and-so's house. And so they had this party, and my now wife at the time was actually doing lighting on that show. And so because of that, she got to go to the party. Well, she was the only person at the party I did not know. So I go to the party, I open up the door, everybody there is, hey, what's going on? Oh my God, this is that. And so I'm walking around saying hi to everybody. Hey, what's up? How you doing? Hey, how'd the play go? Hey, that's great. Hey, I saw you yesterday, this and that. I'm talking to everybody. And this chick who had no idea who I was is looking objectively at like, how does everybody know this guy? And I'm walking around the room just, bantering and having a good time and all this stuff. And next thing you know, I end up in because this happened to all parties, right? It's like, because this happened on later on when I wasn't dating her and I was in California going to parties and stuff, is that I would see a girl that I'm potentially interested in and I'd be like, okay, let me go talk to other people to get social proof. Social proof is a huge deal. You know why? Because it pre-qualifies you. Like if you go to a party and nobody's talking to you and nobody's coming up to you, you are like the guy that she's thinking is like, just, you got invited out of pity, but like clearly nobody here likes you. Like, why are you here? Nobody's talking to you, right? Versus you're in there and you're laughing with all the other girls that are there. You're talking to fellas. Hey, what's up? Hi, what's going on? This is that. And all she's thinking is, I don't know why I don't know him or why I'm the only one that doesn't know him, but clearly I need to get to know him. And so sure enough, with my now wife, I remember clear as day, I ended up walking into the kitchen and she was in there. And again, everything I teach you guys is stuff I've literally done time and time again with women. I saw her in the kitchen getting something. I was like, oh, hey, where'd you get that food from? Blah, blah, blah. Like the most annoyingly simple lines that aren't even lines. Like notice I don't teach you guys pickup lines. I teach you guys to look at stuff in the environment that you can comment on. That it's called a transitional conversation that'll get you into the good graces of a woman where it'll feel like she's already been in the conversation with you so you don't feel like a stranger. It's the exact same stuff that I did on her. And by the way, I've told her this. She knows this entire thing. So that happens. Eventually, so then I leave out, I go to the couch And then who happens to follow me to the couch now? She follows me to the couch. And so we're sitting there, we're talking, having a good time. I'm talking to her, giving her all kinds of attention and whatnot. And then at that point, I was like, I got nothing to lose. I'm already looking at her. I'm looking at her signals. She came, she sat next to me. We're talking. She's giving me those eyes. She's looking down at my lips. This is like the first time, because I'd been studying this stuff for like a year or two, but this is like the first time it all like came together in a way that I'm like, oh, I can actually see what's physically going on right now with this girl. I got to make a move. And so we're on the couch. I'm just like, you know what? Screw it. I'm going to go ahead and go for it. And I just went for it and made out with her. And it was a good makeout. And then I had in my head, okay, this is about as good as it gets for this meeting. This is the height of enjoyment. It's time for you to leave the party. And so sure enough, I said, okay, this is great. I got to go. And I left the party. At the point that we made out, we had a little bit more banter. I said, oh, I got to go. And then I left. It was like 12 midnight. So the party was kind of just like midway through and I was gone, right? What do you think that did? He's gone. Oh my God, that felt really great. Why did he leave so early? Oh my God. And then from then on, she ended up being the first person I did anything with like 3 months later. So I stress this to say that, yes, being social will always be beneficial. Having social proof is a great way for women to feel more comfortable with you a lot quicker. And so I say, if you're bad at communication, if you're bad at knowing what to talk about, practice. Get around other guys that are good at this. Hey, sign up for one-on-one coaching with yours truly, or sign up for one of my programs that explains how to get comfortable doing this stuff. But suffice to say, guy, yeah. And it's not to say that if you're quiet at a party, you can't get a girl. Like, I think with the friend I was talking about earlier, like the one that this guy was at a party and she saw him and walked up to him on the couch. Like, he was on the couch kind of by himself. Like, in that moment he was quiet, but she had seen him around the party talking to other people. Because the thing is, like, women don't want to get the idea of like they're dating like the quiet, creepy guy that just can't seem to get any friends. So it's okay for you to be a quiet guy, but you got to be able to know how to break out of your shell every once in a while, because women want to be able to know if you happen to go to a party with me or an important event that you have a level of sociability that is acceptable for those environments versus just being the guy that's like, hey, what's with your awkward, weird, silent husband over there? Like, women don't want to picture that either, you know? But anyway, hopefully that answers your question. I'm getting great at socializing, but sometimes wonder if I look like that pick-me guy. Well, here's the thing. Within your conversations, the thing is this. Your conversations aren't going to be built on like, hey, so like, you know, I'm single right now. And so, you know, I'm really a great guy, I swear. And this and that. Like, it's, again, think about what I've said about women in passive language, right? Women are going to read more off your energy than what you're actually saying. So if you're too direct about like, hey, so I'm a single guy and I have needs, blah, 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 then they're not going to like you. But you talking about just like fun stuff and making them laugh, they're going to get the vibe of like, oh, this is the coolest heck guy to be around. Because here's the thing. You want women to envision themselves in your world, right? So if you're able to like make her laugh and make her feel good, and you're asking her questions about her life and what she's been through and all this other stuff, then that's going to make her feel like, oh, this guy relates to me. He wants to know more about me. And creating that feeling will cause women to throw themselves at you. It will have them throw numbers, throw panties, et cetera, right? So don't worry too much about like, you're going to be so direct in your conversation. Just focus on creating a good vibe. Focus on appearing and actually being confident, and that'll get you ahead a lot faster. Let's see. Somebody's asking, did I lose my shot with the flirty chick because I didn't approach her because she was plugged into her music or whatever? Dude, she had headphones on. So this is the thing. Women will always have blockers on them. Like, even if she wasn't listening to music, she could be in her head about something. She could be, if she's like a trainer bus, she could be reading a book. She could be in her phone looking up some stuff. Like, the world has created enough obstacles to where a fair portion of women you're thinking about approaching, there's going to be a block of some kind. She could be with her friends hanging out. Like, she could be in a restaurant and you're thinking, oh my gosh, she's like with a server or whatever like that. Like, here's the thing. Our brains are going to use those as excuses to not approach because we're trying to protect our ego and protect ourselves. So if she had headphones on, again, you got to find a way in, whether it's like going up to her and being like, hey, you know, tap on the shoulder, like, hey, excuse me, I don't mean to like, you know, bother you, but just I'm trying to look for something, you know, or, you know, you kind of like walk in front of her and just be like joking, like, oh, my bad. Hey, I didn't mean to walk into your path. Hey, oh, hey, what's up? What's your name? Like, if you're wanting the person enough to at least see what they're about, then you got to not be so worried about, but there's this blocker there to do it if this is that. Like, because again, the world is going to build blockers for her. And if every girl you want to hit on has a blocker in front of her face, I don't want you to be like, well, I can't hit on anybody because they always got headphones on. They always got a book in their face. Like that's speaking more to like us being afraid to make those approaches than like the thing that they have on them or doing that is making us think that we can't now approach them. Another question in the chat says, I've been talking to this girl where I frequent, and it's funny to watch her interact with me as she's slowly opening up to me. I've noticed her heavy breathing and her hands shaking. Ha, that's funny. Have you asked her out on a date yet? Have you said, hey, like, I'd love to talk outside of this place. Like, let me get your number. Like, you can make those kind of moves because women, especially if she's meeting up with you and every time you're at this place, she's trying to talk to you. That's the big sign. Like, dude, I want you to talk to me. But again, that does not mean that she's going to make that move. So you got to be the bold one to say, it's nothing bad to be like, hey, let me get your number real quick. That doesn't mean you're proposing marriage. It doesn't mean you're in love with her. It just means, hey, I want to chat with you outside of just this place. And women don't eat that up. And you ain't got to tell them, hey, I want to get your number so I can ask you out because I really like you. Like, yeah, don't do all that. Just be like, hey, real quick, before I leave out of here again, let me get your number real quick. I'd love to catch up sometime. And then go away for like 2 or 3 days and hit her up. Hey, so-and-so was thinking of getting a bite to eat. Would love to take you out. Let me know if you're free. Boom. Keep it stupid simple. And that's how I tell you guys, like less really is more. The less you text, the less you say in your text, the less you try to take. I'm telling you, all these things are going to result in giving women the space to feel you and to come to you at times while also recognizing that, oh, he's also putting effort forth by asking me out in the first place. Just wanted to say. All right. So let's get into the main topic. So I wanted to talk about this for a while, and there were so many directions I wanted to go into, but I found out there is a new phrase out there in the dating world. I'm gonna make this right. It's called clear coding dating, right? And so I'm not a Gen Z or whatever the freak they're called now. So for those that don't know, clear coding is this idea that when you go on a date now, you're going on a date. Let me see if I get this right, because I have a bunch of articles pulled up. So hopefully my stream won't slow down. I find when I scroll sometimes it slows down. So I'm gonna pull up some articles and talk about this. But basically, see this is so clear coding is this idea basically that like rather than trying to send mixed signals and trying to like hint at things and trying to like, you know, hide who you really are, that you just are date 1, date 2, out and about with like what you want, what your expectations are, like who you're about, all this other stuff, right? And so I'm gonna actually bring up this screen and have this woman talk about what this looks like.
The big dating trend for 2026. According to Tinder's annual year-end swipe report, young single people are done decoding mixed signals and trying to pick up on subtle hints. Instead, they're clear coding their intentions, saying exactly what they're looking for, whether it's a proper date, something casual, or a serious relationship. 64% of app users say that emotional honesty is what they need most, and 60% call for clearer communication around intentions. Clearly, daters want to keep it simple and say it straight. 73% of people admit that they know they like someone when they can be themselves around them, and over half say that honest conversations are the ones that matter most. 45% want more empathy after rejection, and hopeful was the top word used to describe dating in 2026. In short, hope is hot, and singles aren't afraid to show it. And because they're not afraid to feel, 28% say they enjoy having a crush, even if they know it's not going to go anywhere. It's proof that dating for the plot isn't going anywhere at all. Good news for romantics everywhere. For the latest dating advice, tips, and...
Okay, so she goes over a little bit. Well, I want to go back to this, though, and kind of push back on some things that she said, because I think it's important to note that a lot of the stuff you're going to hear this lady talk about are I'll just play it through it. I'll just play it through it. Okay, let's start this again.
6. According to Tinder's annual year-end swipe report, young single people are done decoding mixed signals and trying to pick up on subtle hints.
Okay, so they're saying that the new generation is tired of mixed signals and subtle hints. Who are the ones that typically show mixed signals and subtle hints? Like women are typically the ones, at least the guys, that do that. Now, women would argue that men also show mixed signals. And I've always said there are no such thing as mixed signals. What typically happens is either you or a woman in question have a crush on the other one and the other one's not totally feeling it. So they're kind of like there, but then not there. That's not mixed signals. That's low interest. People that have low interest show mixed signals. But here's the other thing too, is that if you're a guy that becomes more calm in your dating and you're not trying to rush things and you're not trying to like put your whole agenda out there, then women will be in their head about like, well, does this guy like me or not? Is this guy interested? Does he feel things for me? Whatever. And I don't know about you, I have found that a woman feeling that usually resulted in me getting a lot further in dating to the point where I got into relationships. But, you know, they want to complain about it. It is what it is. Let's continue.
Instead, they're clear coding their intentions, saying exactly what they're looking for.
Okay, so she's saying that now the new trend is that, hey, you need to go out there and say exactly what it is that you want. No more playing games, no more hiding on these dates. You need to tell people exactly what you're looking for. And on the surface, this sounds like it would be sound advice. It sounds like this is something that should actually work. How many times have men gone on dates and said, hey, just so you know, I don't want to play games. I already know I like you. I already want to be with you. And I already am aware of like us. I can see us having a future together. How does that usually work out when a guy does that? I don't know about you, but my results have never been that great with regards to being that direct and forthcoming on these dates. But again, women are putting it out there. It sounds like a decent idea.
Whether it's a proper date, something casual, or a serious relationship.
So now she's saying, okay, so the new trend is like, you say, hey, I could see us going out on dates. You say, hey, I only see this as casual, or hey, I see this as a potential just situationship, or I could see this as a real relationship on date 1 or 2, right? Now, we'll get into the problems of why that is later, but suffice to say, she's suggesting things that men have been trying for years, and more often than not, it doesn't work out. So how the new people think this is going to be better than it's been in the past is beyond me, but we'll talk about that a little bit later.
64% of app users say that emotional honesty is what they need most. And
emotional honesty. So they're projecting that, like, again, on a first or second date, that both the man and the woman need to go ahead and be open and honest about the emotions they're already feeling about each other within those first couple of dates. Now, how does that usually work out? Well, if you're a guy, you know that usually by date 2 or 3, you're already feeling all the things, partially because you like her, partially because you want sex. And so imagine on date 2, she wants you to be open and honest about your feelings. What are you going to say? Well, just so you know, I already wholeheartedly like you 100%. I can already see us having a great time together and sleeping together and having adventures together. And I just want to spend all my time with you right now. Because that's legitimately where most men are in their feelings by date 2. And what are most women feeling by date 2? This guy's pretty cool. That's a weaker feeling than what most guys have. So now women are going to hear these things on date 2 and think to themselves, I didn't know he was already feeling that much for me. I'm still trying to figure this out. So I'm glad he was honest with his feelings about me. And now that I know, honestly, what he's feeling, which is the hot to me all around, I realize that his feelings are a lot stronger than mine are right now. And I'm not sure yet if I'll ever get to where his feelings are. So it's not fair for me to keep on dating this guy. So I'm glad he was honest, and now I got to dump him. And so, you know, I tell you guys, don't give away so much early on, in part because if you are that honest by date 2 or 3 with what you're feeling, she's not going to be able to handle that. And she's not going to be able to understand how you got to feel those things for her so fast that she's going to bolt out. So not the best suggestion.
60% call for clearer communication around intentions.
Clear communications. So women are now believing that if they just clearly know what a guy is about, that she's going to fall for him. And as I've just explained, that typically is not the case, in part because getting clarity would mean having to hear how much a guy already likes her, versus when women are not so clear about that, it makes them have to think, okay, what things do I need to bring to the table in order for him to want to eventually choose me or to decide that I'm the right person? Which is why you don't just give away after 2 or 3 dates that, yeah, I already like you. I already know I want to be with you. You could be living that life, but not have to actually say that to her. But again, the new generation would never do believe, but that's what people want. People want to know where this is going after 2 or 3 dates. And we know women famously love when a guy talks about him already seeing a relationship after 2 or 3 dates, right? Oh, wait, that's never been a thing? Oh, so it's going to be a thing now because of this new word called coding, right? Like that's going to be a thing? Like, okay.
Clearly, daters want to keep it simple and say it straight.
Daters want to keep it simple and say it straight. Men have been wanting to keep it simple and say it straight for years. How many men go on dates and it's like, hey, I really want to bang you right now. Or, hey, like, let's get out of here and go to my room and do some stuff. Or, hey, I'm not really about this date. I don't want to pay 50-50. So you pay I don't want to pay 100%. So you pay your half. Like, men have been completely honest on dates with things that women do not want to hear. But are we supposed to now tell men, but wait, like, it's actually cool to say those things because you're doing women a service because they know early on what you're really, really about. And it's like, no, there's a balance to that. And then there's things that happen early on that, well, we'll get to that later.
73% of people admit that they know they like someone when they can be themselves around them.
But here's the thing. So I'll just get into this. So I'm going to ignore this chick. Okay. So here's the thing. Right? So you have all these things. You have this thing now, this whole coding thing. And it's interesting, actually, so this clear coding thing, this idea that you can be completely clear with your intentions, 100% yourself. I'm gonna see if I can pull this article up on here real quick. Let's see if I can get rid of these other two things here. Let's see, move that. Yeah, okay. Move that one. And I'm gonna try to pull this up here. Let's see. On stage, add to the stage here. Here we go. All right. So there's this article that came out recently. How recent is this? This is like last month. Okay. Clear coding. Clear coding is all about being radically honest on first dates. So it says it takes some guts to talk about the future on a first date. Traditionally, you're supposed to make lighthearted jokes and chat about favorite colors, not 5-year plans. But when you think about it, this tactic rarely leads anywhere good. Cut to 5 months after date 1 when you're stuck in a situationship. So already in this article, they're confusing what's going on. What's going on is a man and a woman decided to go out on some dates, and the woman agreed to an arrangement whereby they will hook up with each other without any titles. And cut to 5 months later, and now the woman's not liking that because she wants a title, and now they're in a situationship. But that's not clear. Chances are they were probably like, hey, we should be, what do you think we should do? And they're like, right now, let's just see how things are going. And they both agreed to like, okay, let's just do that. And then they're in a situationship. That is completely different from not being clear of your intentions. But I digress. So then it says, it's why people are leaning into clear coding, a trend uncovered by Tinder in its Year in Swipe 2025 report. The dating app found that 64% of young singles want more emotional honesty in their dating life, while 60% crave clear communication around intentions. So on the surface, this doesn't sound like the worst thing in the world, right? Like being intentional in your dating. I've talked about like the idea of like you go into dating with the understanding of like, your end goal is to eventually get with somebody, right? But what they're implying is that the moment you start dating somebody, you need to be intentionally clear with them about what you want with them, right? And most of the articles, by the way, that I've seen written about clear coding are written by women who famously give advice that somehow manages to work on them. Oh, wait, it does not. Usually the things that they're telling us as guys, we do those things and then they do not work. But I really wanted to dive into this because this leads into a thing I've been thinking about for the past few months, really, which is this idea of that, I don't believe in complete absolutes, right? So the idea that women never, ever give good advice in anything ever involving dating and relationships, I just believe fundamentally that's not true. Because I guess like this guy pointed out earlier, like Apollonia Ponte, I think she gives great dating advice. Courtney Ryan, I think did a good job at being able to help women understand where men are coming from and giving them some solid advice also. But there is a thing that men have experienced whereby, in their day-to-day lives, they'll hear their female friends, their aunties, their moms, their cousins and stuff like that give advice to them when they meet a girl about like, hey, I met this girl, like, what should I do? And the advice they give, when they try that advice out, they find it doesn't work so well. And so I really sat and thought like, okay, what is it about women's advice to men that sucks so hard that it typically doesn't help men in the dating realm? And after looking at it and thinking about it, I realized that was the issue. And I actually wrote an article years ago. I wrote an article on Medium, which I'll leave it. Well, he doesn't have Medium. I'll leave it in the description. I'll leave it in the chat box anyway. If you guys are subscribed to Medium, you can check it out. But it was called The Number One Reason Most Female Dating Advice for Men Doesn't Work. And in that article, I think I mentioned that I said that what they they say should work versus what actually works. I said that their advice, the advice they give is aspirational, not observational, meaning it's stuff that they wish could happen to attract them, but it's not what actually works. And thereupon, I didn't realize at the time was a key thing, which is this, that the distinction is that women give advice that sounds like this. Guys should be more open. They should be more honest. They should be a lot clearer in their intentions. They should be able to communicate everything, and they should be emotionally available. And I will say, all of that advice is actually great advice for men that are already in relationships with them. And what women's advice to men doesn't take into account is that a lot of the things that they want out of a relationship does not work during the attraction phase and during the dating phase. And so this is where a lot of stuff gets messed up, because the things that women actually need to feel from you in the dating phase, in the early attraction phases, are going to be things that may not necessarily work all that great in relationships. Although even then, you're going to be using levels of this stuff in a relationship. But in the dating phase attraction stage, the things that oftentimes work a lot better are things like curiosity, which means she's not fully aware of who you are. Emotional pacing, meaning you're not coming out right away with all your emotions and all your traumas and all your feelings for her. Being selective, being mindful of what things you're going to talk about early on versus not. You know, women will still to this day, in spite of all this honesty that they want, they don't want to hear about like the divorce you just went through. They don't want to hear about that weird kink in bed that you have on date number 2 because you haven't even gotten to the bedroom yet. Like, there are things you are going to be selective about. Mystery, not knowing everything about you, wondering where you're going or who you're spending time with when she's not in front of your face. Those things cause her to think about you more and to wonder and to capitulate and to ponder, are you going to see her again? And again, you would have, the new people would have you believe that women don't need that at all to feel that. It still seems to be pretty effective. Like investing in the person. Like, there's this idea now that off of date 1 or 2, you should already start mentioning things that indicate that you're ready to invest in this person all the way, 100%, no holds barred. And women don't respond positively to that. Like, they don't like the idea that you're already fully invested after 1 or 2 dates. They want gradual investment. Why? Because she is also going to be doing that to you. And so what a lot of women's advice doesn't take into account is that there are so many things that she's going to want from you that work for a relationship that don't cause attraction. Like, you being a reliable person, fantastic in a relationship. You being so predictably reliable in the dating phase, you become that boring, monotonous guy. And that's not me making up that rule. That is reactions that women give across the globe for when men are trying to speak their truth authentically and honestly on those first couple of dates. And not to say that there aren't things that you wouldn't do that with. Like me, date 1 or 2, I'm already telling women I don't want kids. Like, I like living in California. I don't see myself trying to move anytime soon. So, like, you know, there are certain things that you will bring up, but other things, the reality is that during the dating phase, you two don't know enough about each other to make these full-on commitments or full-on gestures to each other in good faith when neither person fully knows if this other person's going to be there. So, for example, big example, right? They give this idea with this coding thing that you should be upfront and honest about what your intentions are within that first couple of dates. So they're saying you as a guy should go on a date and be like, hey, so my intentions with you are to try to get you into a relationship and eventually get married and you have my babies. Like, that's what should be happening, right? But I teach you guys that by date 2, you do not actually know enough about this person to have made a full-on decision about whether or not you want them in a relationship, let alone for a long-term situation. So while you're going into dating with the idea that you'll eventually meet somebody that goes the distance, you don't know if right now on this date with this person you're going out with for the first or second time, if they're going to be the one. But by you saying on this date, hey, just so you know, my intentions are to eventually get you into a long-term relationship, you are now making her feel like you've already made the decision for her to be that person. And if she's not there yet, guys, she's going to be freaked out. She's going to feel like this connection goes from being her decision to now being like a forced thing, and that is going to turn her off. So that's the big issue with women's dating advice. Now, here's the thing. the reason that women oftentimes promote this whole like be clear up front thing is because, to be fair to them, they go through a lot of bozos in their time. And so over time, they've dated people that have wasted their time. They dated guys that are players. They dated guys that have gotten them into situationships, which technically they agreed to, but they're going to put it on the guy like it was his fault. And they've been overly emotional with guys that ended up using that emotions against them, whether to sleep with them or to get money from them or whatever, right? And so women are coming from a good place when they say, no, no more. These are the things that I want out of a relationship. But the reality is, however they got into those various things in the past, those guys were doing things that work to get them attracted. Now, I don't want you to be a trash guy. So that's why I tell you guys, like, if you're looking at like bad boys or jerks and how they get women, like, learn from some of their tactics and do them to get with women that you actually want to get with, because the way that they're attracting women are how they're not being available all the time. They're not overly emotional. They might say some crass stuff from here to there, but they know how to escalate physically to get what they want. And the problem with so-called nice guys is they will hear what women are saying, like, oh, I want a guy that's going to, like, you know, buy me flowers and text me every day. And then that guy during the dating phase will do what? Will text the girl every day. Will get her flowers all the time and can't figure out why 2 weeks later she's saying, I just see this as a friendship. And that's because you bought into the lie. You bought into the lie that because she said she wanted some stuff, that you thought that that meant she wanted that during the dating phase. And that's what women aren't going to be able to explain to you. They're not going to be able to explain that why it is that the things that they want out of a relationship isn't turning them on in the dating phase. And it's because the dating phase requires a different set of tools that, like them or not, sometimes are things that if you were doing them in a relationship would be horrible. Like, I'm very much pro not texting women between dates, right? Obviously, you know, I'm in a marriage now. I text my woman like every day. Like, she's at work, I'll send her a meme, I'll send her a picture of this and that. But we're at the stage now where I can do that and there's no pushback. But even when we first got back together, I still wasn't the one reaching out every day. Like, she'd be reaching out to me. I would text her back. I'd wait a couple of days. She'd hit me up again, or I'd hit her sporadically. But it was never like we're texting each other every single day, because during the attraction phase, they need time to miss you. They need time to wonder, why isn't he texting me back? What's going on? Do I have competition? And guys oftentimes don't like to hear that. And then they'll hear a woman say something that backs up that feeling. Like, oh yeah, no, don't listen to Harry. Like, I love it personally. I've had so many articles that I've typed up, or videos that I've done on YouTube, where I'll have women in the comments, this guy's full of bull crap. I love when a guy texts me and calls me every day. And if a guy took me out and didn't text me every day, and they don't date those guys. But that is behavior that they want or need out of a person that they're married to, or that they're in a long-term relationship with, where the woman's already like solidified her feelings enough for this guy to where those kind of actions aren't going to cause him any negative points, you know? But in the dating phase, everything women tell you needs to be taken with a grain of salt, and then that grain of salt needs to be dissolved in water and thrown away. Okay? So I say all this because, you know, I never want to be the guy that's 100% absolute. So I don't want you guys to think that like I view women negatively. I've had so many women, I've probably interviewed more women on this show who are dating experts than I have guys, just because they're the ones that typically tend to reach out more. But trust me, I go to their websites, I vet their videos, I vet their site to see if like they're giving the standard, like, oh, a guy should be nice and smile, this and that. No, it's like, this is the real, this is the truth. That's why I like Apollonia Ponte stuff. I like Courtney Ryan stuff, because they were very much in the understanding of like, you know, girls will say they want this thing, but then the reality that guys have faced is that they actually do this and this. So guys do this instead. And I think women that have an understanding of that and can actually say, hey, as a woman, respectfully, I've observed that, yeah, a guy texted me every single day when I was dating him, it did kind of give me the ick. So guys, don't do that. But a lot of women out there are going to give you what sounds good. And it's not that it can't work. It's just it can't work in the dating realm of things. It'll work better for their advice when you're at the point that you're in an actual relationship. And then even then, you got to be mindful to vet that also, because women oftentimes will say things like, yeah, like, if you're doing like a hobby and stuff like that, and it's taking you away from her, maybe consider like lessening that hobby or giving it up altogether. And plenty of men have done that and then like lost their woman because they lost the thing. They stopped doing the thing that in essence attracted her in the first place, right? So all to say, guys, if you're out there, you're taking in all this advice from me and from other people, and you're thinking that maybe women have the key, understand it's not that all women's advice is bad. You just have to know the timing of when their advice is going to work and where it's coming from. Women that are in relationships oftentimes are going to give you advice that has worked to keep them attracted in a relationship. But that does not mean that that's stuff that works. Like, there are plenty of things I did attracting my now wife and attracting other girls that I dated, that at the point that I got to actually dating them long term, I could stop doing some of those things because I knew, okay, it's like, and that's what I always felt, by the way, that the pickup artists got wrong. Like, the pickup artists were always really, really good at knowing what tactics to use in order to pick up a girl and to build the interest. It's just they wanted to keep doing that same stuff when they got into a relationship. And there's a set of relationship skills that I feel the pickup artists did not do a good job at knowing what to do with, and they couldn't explain that. So this is why you got to mesh the two of like knowing what's good in the pickup stage, in the attraction phase, in the dating phase, and then knowing what advice will work in the relationship phase. I found that women do a better job at giving advice that sounds good, that will work in the relationship phase than it ever will in the dating phase, because at the end of the day, women aren't the ones trying to attract women and get them to like them. And so a lot of the stuff that I teach you guys, a woman hearing that, it'd be like, that's stupid, that's dumb, how's that going to work? But being conscious of it versus having a guy come along that just happens to do all that stuff naturally. Like, if I say to a woman's face, hey, if a guy doesn't text you between dates, like, will you go out with him again? Most women are going to say, no, I wouldn't do that. That's playing games. Let it be a situation where she's with a guy she's highly interested in, and she goes out on this fantastic date, and then he has to go away on business for a week, and he's in the mountains, and he doesn't have his phone on him. Or he does have his phone on him, but he's just like, screw it, I don't want to talk to her for a week. Best believe that woman is going to be like, but I just want him to call me again. I've seen it play out. I've seen women that have been the biggest hypocrites tell somebody like me, hey, like, I need a guy to call me every day, and then lose interest, and then see that same girl be like, he hasn't talked to me in like 2 weeks. Like, I don't know what's going on. I want him to just call me. So again, because what they don't get at is that for them, even if they're thinking about it logically, their emotions, the emotional logic for them is going to trump the analytical logic. So analytically, he didn't call me for 4 days, therefore I should not want to talk to this guy. But emotional logic is, oh, but I just feel that I just love him when I'm in his presence, and he makes me feel all these things, and I just want to be with him again. And so their emotions are going to trump their logic every single time, their analytical logic every single time. So this is why, again, that the things that women are telling you to do with women that aren't in their situation, like, they'll tell you some stuff to do that didn't work on them at all. But my situation was different because, yeah, he was busy and he couldn't text me all the time, blah, 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 blah. Like, that just goes to show you that, again, the stuff they're telling you that should work typically is not going to be the best thing to do when you're trying to attract them. But in a relationship, I would give more leniency. So hopefully that helps you guys out with figuring out when to listen to women. Anyway, guys, that's all I got for today's show. Thank you so much for checking out this episode of Stop Losing Women. If you need my help, you can go to stoplosingwomen.com. You can sign up for one-on-one coaching. I have some great ebooks there, including my book, Stop Losing Women, which is a blueprint for like the things to do and not do when you're trying to attract women. You can check out the Get Girls Academy. Bunch of great stuff there. And always, as always, guys, if you're listening on the podcast, go to youtube.com/stoplosingwomen. We do these live shows every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday afternoon at 11 or 12 a.m./p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So you can get in there. You can ask the questions. We can talk. We can chat. All that great stuff. That's all I got for today, guys. I am Harry Wilmington, and I will catch you guys on the next episode. I'm out. Peace.